Hello and welcome to the Gospel according to Tim Aplin, or Why Jesus is Good News for Me. So before we start, if I can just read this. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope. So in 2011, we had planned a celebration trip to Canada. It was Deb's and my 50th, and it was also the golden anniversary of Deb's mum and dad. So the plans were we would go to Toronto and spend some time out there sightseeing and visiting with a friend that we both went to school with. So those were the plans, and they were well and truly underway. Everything was organised, flights, where we were staying, everything, all organised. But towards the end of April of that same year, I discovered a lump on my neck. It was possibly the size of like half a boiled egg. So Deb's chased me up to the doctors, who asked questions: any pain, any loss of sensation, any problems anywhere else, to which the answer was no. So I was referred to Poole Hospital, and on May the 11th I turned up there with the plans of those guys there doing some investigations. At the same time, Deb's had a carload of flowers that she was going to deliver for a wedding. So yes, they did some explorations and they came to the conclusion that I had squamous cell cancer. So my primary was on the base of my tongue, and what had given us the heads up that something was going on was this lump on my neck in my lymph. So we went through the investigations, and Deb still has this carload of flowers that need delivering to Bournemouth. And after their investigations, we went back to the guy, my oncologist, a guy called Mr. Cox, who then sat us down at a table and said that they'd found some abnormal cells and I would need some treatment. And I was then passed on to a member of his team who talked us through what the regime of treatment was going to be. And so this was going to be 2 rounds of chemo and then 6.5 weeks of radio chemo. We were pointed out from the very word go that because of the aggressiveness of this cancer and the fact where it was inoperable, or if they did operate, I would possibly lose the ability to speak because it was on the base of my tongue. So they said that the vast majority of people are unable to complete this treatment, and in certain cases this treatment has actually killed people. So I said to the guy that was there, I was a little bit arsey, dare I say, at this point, because I was upset about the fact that there was the possibility of this getting in the way of us going to Canada. I'd not met at this point my son's wives, and I hadn't met my grandkids because they were not born yet. So in my mind I'm getting uptight, and I'm thinking my plans are that I'm going nowhere until I've met these people, and I've got a good deal older. So treatment starts, and I very much approached this treatment as like a 5-year-old kid, really. I was always interested to how this would feel, what they would do, what impact it would have on me, on my body, on my mental state. So they talked us through what was going to happen, what they were going to do. And they also said that they were going to do there and then on the day a procedure called an aspiration, where they would take some cells from my neck and have a really good look at those. So I go down to the basement of Poole Hospital to have this procedure done, and Debs goes to deliver the flowers. Now, as she gets out and into the car, she basically texts everybody, "Houston, we have a problem." She was feeling somewhat shaky at this point, understandably so. And she texted, she got in the car, she turned the praise and music up full volume and drove to Bournemouth. A little bit previous to the start of this story, we'd had a visit by Mary and Judith, two prophets from Alaska, and they spoke over and into our lives, Debs and myself. And at one point, part of the prophecy was that Debs and myself were a team. So there's all this ticking away in the back. I'm thinking, to be a team, you need two people. So Debs arrives with the flowers in Bournemouth, totally at peace. And unbeknown to me as well, as she was going out of Poole Hospital, she'd met a friend of ours who worked in nuclear science down there. And she'd explained to Chris what the situation was and what was going to have to happen, and the fact that I'd just spoken to the oncologist and said, "We are going to Canada and we'll sort out whatever's going on with me when we come back, if that's all right with everybody." So I'm sat downstairs in the basement waiting to go in for this procedure, and I heard these footsteps coming down the corridor. Debs hadn't told me she'd met Chris, our friend, but somehow I just knew. I knew who this was coming down the corridor. And as she came around the corner, I saw her and I said, "Chris, we're not going to Canada, are we?" And she said, "No, Tim, I think we need to get this sorted." And there started just the most amazing journey through cancer treatment down at Dorset Cancer Centre in Poole Hospital. They were just the most amazing guys there, absolutely every single one of them. So I had my first round of chemo, which was interesting, and yeah, you know, it's like, so again there I'm thinking, what's this going to feel like? What's it going to do to my body? Round one over, and pretty quickly I start to lose my hair. So I then had my second round of chemo. Now my hair's really falling out, and I'm starting to feel a little tired and sort of suppressed appetite. So decision made. Rather than my hair fall out, I shave my head. I say shave, a lot of it fell out. And we get stuck into chemotherapy. And through all of this, Debs was amazing. She was phenomenal. She got a couple of friends to come round, and basically they went through the house. They anointed every door frame with oil. They pinned up, stuck up scriptures, encouraging scriptures all over the place. And it was just the start of just the most amazing time of my life. Very soon after I was diagnosed, we went and saw parents, my mum and dad, and Deb's mum and dad, and we spoke to friends, and they were just amazing, really supportive. We were merciless with negativity. If we received negative comments or cards, if they weren't in a positive vein, we were all over it like terriers. Deb's even put a note out on one of our planters outside and used it as a bin, and on there it said, please leave all negative thoughts and talk in the bin provided. Thank you. And we had a double glazing salesman try and sell us double glazing, which he failed, but he took a picture of the bin. So we also had this thing called the peace bubble, and that was an overriding thing through my treatment, that there was this awesome sense of peace. So how does the peace bubble work? So the peace bubble, one size fits all. So me and Debs got in the peace bubble, and then we spoke to really good friends in the church, explained the situation. So they got in the peace bubble with us. Our parents were in the peace bubble. So there's this wave of peace, an expectation of a good ending to this story. So also we were heavily involved with kids in the church. There was a Connect camp going on. So I've had 2 rounds of chemo. I'm then going to have a tube fitted into my stomach called a PEG, which at some point, because of the treatment I'm having, I will not be able to swallow, not be able to feed myself in the traditional way. So I'm going to have to use a syringe to feed myself through this PEG. So Connect camp is going on, and at some point during there, quite early in the week, I go off, I have this PEG fitted, I come back, and we're doing kids work at camp, about 120 kids, and at some point during those few days at camp, there was the opportunity for me to kneel with all these kids around me and get prayed for by kids who don't see any negative, are positive in the extreme, and are only expecting a good result. So I had a break between the 2 rounds of chemo, and then we get stuck into radio chemo. So this is Monday to Friday, down to Poole Hospital, get zapped with the radiotherapy. Monday was all day, chemo all day, and zapped as well. And again, approach this as a young lad, thinking, oh, this is interesting, how will this work? And as the 6.5 week goes on, I'm becoming more and more unwell, tired, absolutely no energy. Now I can't eat. I've got to a point where it takes 40 minutes for me to eat a yogurt. So in the end we go, right, quit using this, let's use the peg. So I'm on little high nutritional drinks, loads of them, and I'm just getting slower and slower. But again, Debs is a amazingly strong woman through this. She has the lioness anointing through all of this. And I've also got two really good friends in the church, and the husband of these two friends, every day he would either text, phone or visit right the way through my treatment, every single day. Even some days when I see who it is on the phone and go, Debs, I just can't talk to this guy today because of how ill I was feeling. So the scripture that springs to mind there is in Proverbs 18:25. It says, there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And this guy is he's my memorial stone to the goodness of God. And even now, when I see him or when I think of this guy, I'm just reminded of the goodness of God through my treatment. So, Satan and cancer didn't stand a chance. With prophetic words and people praying, both within the church, locally, and as I learned later on, worldwide. And some people I didn't even know and possibly will never meet. But just amazing. So, about the last week of radio chemo, from the guy who's being dragged there because I am so tired and wore out, I'm now counting the days, 7 days to go, and I want to get down there, I want to get this over and done with. And one of the side effects of radio chemo as well, so you have your 6.5 weeks of treatment, boom, treatment finishes, and then there's a 3-week period after that where your symptoms get to a peak before you can start getting better. So I have the most raging sore throat. I have, like, from the radiotherapy, sunburn like you wouldn't believe, unable to speak, not wishing to swallow because it's too painful. And then recovery starts. Again, Deb's ever-loving wife turns into the bully. And that is part of the recovery. That is part of, come on, get up, get out of bed, get dressed, try and drink something, try and eat something. Yes, I know it's painful, but try, keep trying, keep doggedly trying at that. So, man, did that woman bully me. And in early December of the same year, 2011, we had the opportunity to go to Faldebrennen in Wales. And again there, just all part of the healing process to get into that just highly godly charged atmosphere and peace and quiet. And it was there that I was able to have my first proper meal again. And recovery continues. It's hard work. My hair starts to grow, what little hair I had and even got now. So my hair starts to grow. And amazingly, it comes back darker than pre-treatment. It came back darker. And time goes on, and my appetite is slowly improving, slowly getting energy back, and getting that wanting to do things, wanting to get involved with stuff again. And as part of that, I had the opportunity to go to Lox Lane to a 4-week residential course up there called Eagle's Wings School of the Heart, with David and Faith up there. And through the 4 weeks of D-Coke, Dynarod, call it whatever you want, all the stuff that you take on board as you go through life, to have these things stripped away, shrugged off. And I'd always viewed God as a really strict disciplinarian. He was the guy in the shadows, he was the really old guy with the big long beard, the half-bald head, and he was in the shadows. And what would happen if I was a naughty boy, he would come out of the shadows and I'd get a whack with a stick, and he'd say, "If you don't behave yourself, I'm going to come back and see you." So that was my rather wacky view of God. But during this 4-week period of intensely Holy Spirit anointed time, he came out of those shadows. He revealed himself to who he really is. And even now, as I think about it, I can feel my emotions stirring of this revelation of who my Heavenly Dad really is, of how he really sees me, how he accepts me unconditionally, how his love for me is boundless, how he loves me where I am, but doesn't want me to stay where I am. He wants to draw me on to better, to know him more, for him to reveal more of himself to me. So 2011 and early 2012 was amazing times, and I look back on that now, okay, with maybe a bit of rose-tinted glasses involved, but that was life-changing for me. It was such a awesome period of time for me and Debs, and a time of drawing us closer together, a time of us being drawn as a couple closer to God, and a time of strengthening us for other stuff that will come along, that we'd be able to in the future say, yeah, that happened, but how did we get through that? And to be able to come beside people and encourage them to be able to say, yes, I know what you're going through. I've got the t-shirt. Yeah, I know it's rubbish at the moment, but here's the happy ending of the story. So, yeah, it has been and continues to be an amazing journey, and he always wants the best for us, and that's just hilarious. It's awesome, it's amazing. And if you're listening to this, if you flick through YouTube, you know, social media, and just come across this, and wondered, what is it that this guy's got? I would encourage you to Google Lighthouse Family Church, Poole, and just dig a little deeper. So, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening. I hope that in some way this has blessed you. And thank you, guys. See ya.